Can you hear me now? Great. So we are going to go ahead and get started. The mayor must be running behind. So good afternoon and welcome to this event to honor and support Purple Heart Medal recipients and the Purple Heart City presentation. Please take a moment to silence all electronic devices. Please rise for the playing of the national anthem. Please welcome your host for today's event, Reverend Artie Kusimis, who is kind enough to offer his church for this event for a benediction.
Welcome everyone to our church. Before I say anything else, I want to say thank you for your service to this country, to all of us. You made a selfless sacrifice, and for that we are forever grateful. We as a church know that it's a privilege to worship because of what you did. You fought for us, and you kept us free, let alone the freedom that we have in this greatest country called the United States of America. 2,000 years ago, there was a man from Nazareth who went to war for our souls. He also was wounded in this war, but it was for our transgressions. He was bruised for our iniquities, and by those same wounds we were healed. That man was Jesus, and he believed that the war was worth fighting for because we were worth it. So today I want you to know that your wounds have healed a lot of us and our nation, and I pray that you will also be healed by knowing that it was worth it. We are forever grateful for your sacrifice. Let us pray. Father in heaven, I'm so grateful for these wonderful men and women that stand before us. We are honored to be in their presence, and we will never know the sacrifice that they made. In those dark moments, I know you were there with them. I pray now that you be with us as we honor them, as we bless them, and we support them. Father, I pray your blessing in the name that's above every name, in the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Thank you. Please be seated. Thanks for getting here. There's a lot going on in the world right now, and it's good to see a nearly packed house. Hopefully you're comfortable and well spaced out enough, and if not, feel free to move about the room. Bathrooms are right out the door there on the right-hand side. Joining us today, retired United States Army Major Daniel Ettinger, Commander, Department of Connecticut Military Order of the Purple Heart, right up front. What's the canine's name? It's a baby. He has his working dog or his service dog with him. Commander of the American Legion Post 12 in Norwalk, Richard J. Olson. Senior Vice Commander of VFW Post 603 in Norwalk, Leo Motika. Leo's birthday today. Thanks for being here. 21 again. Commander of Mahakamo Detachment of the Marine Corps League in Norwalk, Dan Caparella, back in the corner behind the pole. Good to see you, Dan. So we're going to get started and introduce some of the honorees. It's going to go chronologically by war and then alphabetically within each. First, some facts. There are 117 known recipients. I still have applications pending, 3 or 4 more coming in. These are the wars that they represent. Some additional facts about branch of service and those who were awarded the medal posthumously. Way too many on that list. And these are all people right from these streets in Norwalk that lived here at some point or had family here or born here or buried here. Next slide. There are 2 sets of brothers who are recipients, the Diavanzos and the Vingos. More about them in a minute when we get to them. 2 sets of Norwalk residents who were killed in action on the same ship, Charles Billington and William Caldera. There's a backstory there. I'm looking forward to sharing that with you. And 2 sets, and then the Coast Guard fellows too, Walton Vale and George Van Alstyne. Some facts and history about the medal. Hopefully you can read that. General George Washington established it. It went dormant for many years. In 1932, Douglas MacArthur brought it back, made it retroactive to 1917, so people that were wounded or killed in action in World War I were eligible. But more on that in a minute. I have a slide on that. Some facts about the process. This all began with me looking into the names on the plaques at the Shea McGrath Memorial, Calf Pasture, if you've been down there, or the base of the cannon on the town green. These are names of all the deceased Norwalk residents who died in wartime service. So I started looking through those, and a subset of names appeared quickly, and that is Purple Heart recipients, combat wounded or killed. And I thought this would be a great opportunity to highlight them. And then Major Edinger, I listened to him give a speech at Norwalk Community College, geez, a year or 2 ago at least, and spoke about the military order, the Purple Heart, and getting a city named a Purple Heart city. And I thought this would be the perfect city to do that. We love our veterans here. We love our Memorial Day parade. And this would be an honor for me to bring this to the city. And so that's really how it got started. And then I didn't have enrollment forms for the full list, so I asked many of you to send in an enrollment form. And most of you did. There were people already enrolled in the National Purple Heart Hall of Honor. And those that weren't, I sent a form in to get them enrolled. And of the 117 on the list, there's only 15 that haven't been posted yet. I think the museum up there is still working on the list. And I'll touch base with them, make sure the remaining 15 get out there. This event is being recorded, 1 camera. We're going to get a video, put it out on YouTube, so those that couldn't make it will be able to see the event. When it comes time for your loved one in the presentation, if somebody would like to speak on behalf of the family, just stand where you are. My beautiful bride over in the doorway will bring you a microphone and you can speak from there. What's said on the microphone will go on the video as well. It's just your image won't be on there. We're just doing 1 camera today. So without further ado, representing the sole known recipient who served during World War I, Private John Restivo. A little bit about him. This is really every slide on every person is going to have roughly this kind of information out there. Real simple, short bio. And if you could forward to the next slide. This was given to me by the family. It's hard to see, so I'll read it to you. It reads at the top, Columbia gives to her son the accolade of the new chivalry of humanity. And at the bottom in cursive, John Restivo, Private, Company D, 12th Machine Gun Battalion. And under that, it says served with honor in the World War. There was only one at the time. And was wounded in action. I did some research on that particular certificate and found that President Wilson requested artist E.H. Blashfield design an illustration for use on a certificate that would be presented to every veteran wounded in action during the recent World War. That is President Wilson's signature on the bottom right corner. This design was later authorized for use in the official emblem of the disabled American veterans of the World War. Is anybody from the Restivo family here? Okay. I did hear from a couple of people that weren't sure whether they're going to make it or not. There are 18 Norwalkers who have not been awarded the medal from World War I. All were in the Army. I looked into the process to have the records corrected for the 18 heroes, and the Army informed me it has to be the veteran themselves or primary next of kin. Obviously, the veteran can't speak for themselves, and unfortunately, I'm unable to find the next of kin, but wanted to acknowledge them on the next slide. Some of those names you might recognize. Top of the right-hand column, Lieutenant Frank Godfrey. He's the namesake of the American Legion Post by Norwalk High School. Moving on to World War II. Private Michael P. Abriscato. Many World War II infantry troops, and you'll see that. Is any member of the family here? Okay. Glad you could make it. She's going to get the microphone for you.
Hi, thank you. Excuse me.
Take your time, you're fine.
I was only 8 months old when he died. He was my father, and I'm named for him. I'm Michelle Abriscato. And I wanted to share something about him. So I took a paragraph from a letter that he wrote to my mother. I believe it was the last letter that he wrote to her. He started them with, "Hello, my little angel. Gee, how I miss you, honey. It will be wonderful just to be by you. That is what I want more than anything on earth. Just think, in the not too distant future, I will again be a civilian. My duty will have been done and we will owe no man. Then we will look around for a nice house where we can live forever." And my mother let me read other letters from him, and that is how I came to know him. Thank you.
You're quite welcome. That's awesome. Chief Yeoman Anthony Aquino. He is one of the namesakes of the Moldoy Tarloff Aquino VFW Post 603 in Norwalk. Tech Sergeant John P. Barris, Jr. The monument you see pictured there is near the harbor in Nysted, Denmark, where his plane went down. And in the middle of the base of the monument, his name appears there. If you ever go on vacation in Denmark, let me know. I'll tell you exactly where it is. Ensign Frank H. Bissell, Jr. He flew the Grumman Avenger. This plane was credited with 30 submarine kills during the war. I'll put some pictures like this on some of the slides just to give you a sense of what these fellas did. Look how small that plane is, and pretty much defenseless. There'll be another slide, another picture further on. PFC David H. Blackman, Jr. He was captured and the next day escaped and was wounded while escaping. Is Charlene Ziemba here? No? Okay. It's a family member that I spoke to that thought she might be able to make it. PFC John P. Blackman. Next. PFC Douglas A. Bora Sr. Spoke to his son, Junior, a few hours ago, and he lives in Rowayton and is unable to get out of his driveway. But I have a little bit about Douglas Bora Sr. If you've never heard of him. Combat infantryman for 3 campaigns, Silver Star. He was recommended for the Medal of Honor and 4 additional Silver Stars Bronze Star with V device, Combat Infantry Badge, Purple Heart with Arrowhead for leading troops across the Weser River on 6 April 1945, Expert Infantry Badge in the community. He chaired the Norwalk Bicentennial Commission in 1976 for 5 years and ran 52 events connected to that. He created the Norwalk Beautification Council, chairman of the Yankee Doodle Committee, and on and on and on. And he is a member, one of two members of this list that are in the Connecticut Veterans Hall of Fame. And he was inducted in 2006. Staff Sergeant Clayton E. Broke. He was a ball turret gunner. And what you see there on the bottom of the slide, that sits underneath the plane. And typically they pick the shortest person to climb in there. You climb in there before the plane takes off. And your responsibility is everything under the plane. So small in stature, but he fit in the equipment. He has ties to Weston, Connecticut also. There's a plaque in Weston in front of the church on Northfield Road with his name on it. First Lieutenant Gordon Buck. Interesting story here. Legendary sports writer Grantland Rice wrote a story about Lieutenant Buck for the Sporting News magazine. This is an extract. His name is Gordon Buck. Less than 2 years ago, he was just another caddy at the Shorehaven Golf Club located in Norwalk, Connecticut. Not quite just another caddy, for he showed such alertness at locating wild slices driven into wild landscapes that he soon drew the name Gazer. His golf club soon discovered that Gazer could follow the flight of the most erratic blows that ever careened from wood or iron. Then war and the shadow of war came along. And that's just an extract of it. And I sent a copy of this to the Shorehaven Club. Didn't hear back from them, but they should have a plaque or something for him down there. But next, Seaman Second Class Charles N. Byington. He and the hero on the next slide both died when the USS Juno went down in the South Pacific. This is the same incident that killed the 5 Sullivan brothers, which prompted the Navy to begin a policy to not allow siblings to serve on the same ship. Next. And his shipmate, Seaman Second Class William F. Caldera. He and Charles Byington from the previous slide joined the Navy on the same day. They were 6 months apart in age and lived 1.5 miles from each other. A backstory we may never know is whether they knew each other or not prior to joining the Navy. I'd like to think they did know each other and they joined together and paid the ultimate sacrifice. Next. Seaman Third Class William D. Cameron Jr. Many of the pictures you see come from high school yearbooks. The Norwalk Library History Room in the basement has every yearbook from all the high schools in town, and painstakingly went through each. Private Gerald Campitella. I found an article from a few years ago about a French teenager who sponsored Private Campitella's grave marker at Normandy American Cemetery. I tried to find this teenager, but had no luck. There are actually 2 Norwalk residents buried at Normandy. The other one is coming up in a few slides. First Lieutenant Herbert Chenard, a fellow high school classmate of mine. Don Finch is a family member of Lieutenant Chenard. Are you here, Don? There he is. Don asked not to say anything, but I want to acknowledge your contribution. Thank you for everything. PFC Alfred J. Charletto. I found this picture of his medal on a webpage called findagrave.com. That site has been an invaluable resource, and as I researched each of these people, if they didn't have a page on findagrave.com, I created one, and if they had one, I would update it with the correct information. Next. First Lieutenant Harold Coffin, a recipient of the Silver Star Medal also for gallantry on the in action on the day he was killed. The citation reads, when his lead scouts hesitated in the face of extremely heavy enemy sniper and machine gun fire, Lieutenant Coffin, at great risk to his life, moved to the head of his platoon and boldly made his way into the outskirts of the town, which was his platoon's objective. After he had organized his platoon, Lieutenant Coffin engaged in a bitter firefight with the enemy and entirely neutralized several enemy positions before he was killed himself by sniper fire. Let's pause there for a second. So all these people were just names on a plaque to me until I started digging into it and started digging up citations and realizing These are some heroes right here, and it's an honor to bring this to you. Next up, First Lieutenant Albert J. Contra Jr. Second Lieutenant Frank B. Cooper. The Norwalk Hour was a great resource as well. A lot of years are missing, but if you Google Norwalk Hour newspapers on Google, you'll be able to go through many, many old issues. First Lieutenant Eugene M. Krieg. Unfortunately, unable to find a lot of these people's family. But you know what? This information's out there on the web now, and if I'm ever contacted, I'll make sure that this story gets updated, especially with a picture. Staff Sergeant Nicholas J. Kersey. He's buried in a joint grave at Mountain Home National Cemetery in Tennessee with 2 other crew from his plane. Joint burials were common then when remains couldn't be specifically attributed to a specific individual. Is Deborah here? Malika? No? Okay. Next. Machinist Mate, Second Class William J. Sinke. In Battery Park in Manhattan, where you can catch the ferry to the Statue of Liberty, is a memorial called the East Coast Memorial. That memorial has his name on it, along with the 2 other Coast Guard heroes from Norwalk, who we'll see in a few slides. Next. Private Prospero Diavanzo. This is the other Army soldier who's buried at Normandy American Cemetery. An excerpt from his bronze medal citation. Private Diavanzo repeatedly exposed himself to the heavy shell fire and picking up the wounded and carrying them to the comparative safety of the sea wall where aid could be rendered. So he landed at Utah Beach and was killed 3 days later. And his brother, Silvio V. Diavanzo. The Diavanzo parents had 12 children, 9 sons and 3 daughters. As I understand it, 7 of the 9 sons served in the military. Is Wayne Diavanzo here? Kim? Hi, Wayne. Would you like to say some words?
Yeah, maybe my hand.
No?
Okay. Staff Sergeant Louis S. Dotto. Louis Dotto was one of 16 soldiers from the 27th Infantry Division who were killed on the same day in action on July 7, 1944, on the island of Saipan. All are considered missing. There are various theories, but the predominant one is they were buried in a mass grave that was never found. So when you think about POW MIA and you see a flag, this is one of those people that maybe someday his remains return to Norwalk. Private Sanders Dorr Jr., also Bronze Star Medal recipient, could not find his citation, though. He is also MIA. Gunner's Mate Third Class Joseph M. Dragon. His ship was in port and was bombed by the Germans, and his remains were never found. Aviation Radioman Second Class Jacob C. Derner Jr. He was a turret gunner on a Grumman Avenger. This is the same plane from the previous slide. What I've circled in red there is his seat facing backwards, with little blocking him and anybody approaching. The pilot almost made it back, but crashed short of the island that they were due to land on. And that red circle, I explained that. Next, Private Vincent K. Enos, 2-time recipient, wounded in September 1944 and went back out in battle and was killed in action. Is Lauren here? Kim, would you like to say a few words? No? All right. Stage fright. You should be up here. No, I'm kidding. I'm all right. Next, Tech Sergeant William U. Ettinger Jr. Carrie, raise your hand. This is Carrie Ettinger. She's here for another family member that's coming up at near the end, but she's also related to William Ettinger. Private John V. Fisk, also killed in Luxembourg, as Sergeant Ettinger was. Seaman Second Class Hobart Ford Jr. was killed in Operation Tiger, which was an exercise to get ready for the D-Day landing. Is a member of the Ford family here? Kip? No? Okay. Private First Class George Thomas Michael Fox. First Lieutenant Peter R. Froliker. Quartermaster Second Class Alan B. Gregory Jr. Here's a little trivia for you. His ship was PT-337. The only president of the United States to receive a Purple Heart Medal was John Kennedy, who was the captain of PT-109. I exchanged emails, too, with a friend of his, 92-year-old Fred Miller, who, yes, uses email and had vivid memories of the Gregory family living out on Newtown Avenue. Had the Gregory store out there, for those who know Norwalk history. It's the same family that owned the store. PFC Anthony B. Gregory, not related to the previous Gregory. Private Paul P. Gullius Jr. Charlie, you want to say anything? This is my fellow Legionnaire, Charlie Williams, who knew the family well.
I just would like to say that Uncle Paul was the finest kind. When I was in service, I could always call him when I couldn't reach my folks. And we had shared Fort Campbell in common, which became Fort Campbell. But he was a family man. He didn't live an extreme long time, but he also was employed at Yankee Metal, went into service, and came back and worked at Yankee Metal until he passed. Thank you.
Captain Roderick S.G. Hall, Stephen Goodspeed Hall. This is a personal hero of mine. I spent a lot of time digging into this. A book was actually written about him. Captain Hall created his own plan to parachute behind enemy lines in the mountains of Italy and go on one-person missions to blow up bridges, railroad tracks, and electricity stations. He was hung by the SS in Italy. The 3 people responsible for his death were later found in Germany and brought to an international war crimes trial, and were also hung for their crimes. The book written about his unit in the OSS called the Brenner Association. The Distinguished Service Cross he received is the Army equivalent of the Navy or Air Force Cross, and is one step from being awarded the Medal of Honor. And he lived right here on East Avenue. First Lieutenant Louis G. Henry, and I believe there is family here. That's the picture that was sent to me, sir. Movie star good looks.
Yeah. My name is Yancey Lewis Naughton, and my mother is Jonna Henry, or Jonna Naughton. She was born, 6 or 8 months after he died in Italy. He had made it all the way through Africa, came up through Italy and died in a tank. I believe he was made a major after his death. But my mother was born in Norwalk, and I don't know if you remember Norwalk Cells, but my aunt Marcia's father was the owner of Norwalk Cells. And anything else you want to say? No? Thank you.
Mayor has arrived. PFC John Hollick Jr. Just today, I talked to somebody that's a member of the VFW in Danbury, and there was a Slavic club that John Hollick Jr. was a member of, and he's going to get me additional information and hopefully a better picture too. That'd be good. PFC Harold Hyatt Jr. A little side note, personal note, his sister was my kindergarten teacher. He was voted the best male athlete in Norwalk High School in the class of 1942. He was one of 6 graduates of that class to be killed in action, by far the most. He was in the same infantry division as John McGrath, who we'll meet in a few slides, and that name might ring a bell with some of you. Lieutenant William R. Jones, wounded in action on 24 May 1944 in Italy, near Cisterna. Family member, this is quoting their email, "My father sustained enemy shell fire into his right shoulder and left temporal region of his scalp. His right shoulder was fractured and surgery was unable to remove all foreign bodies. In all, around 7 p.m. that day, he was struck in the right arm, shoulder, forehead, and neck by enemy artillery shells." Cheryl Smith is his daughter, lives outside of Philadelphia, and for COVID reasons decided not to come. Lieutenant Harry M. Kelly, again, another family that just couldn't connect with despite using ancestry sites and things like that. And if any of you know any of these people or descendants, please put them in touch with me. Private Michael C. Ledestro. Nicole, are you here? In the back. Would you like to say a few words?
Hello, I'm Steve Ledestro, and my Uncle Mike, along with my father Frank, and their other brothers, Angelo and Andrew, were all proud to have enlisted together. They were honored to serve our country. Joining the service really becomes a part of your identity, and for people like Uncle Mike, it was something that he took a lot of pride in.
Well done. PFC Lauren F. Lane, the only Norwalker to be killed in action on Iwo Jima. That picture you see is the Iwo Jima Memorial in New Britain. If you're ever in the area, his name is part of that. That's only a piece of the memorial. Second Lieutenant Marcel J. Lapointe. Kind of a sad story. He didn't know he was the father of a son, and he was killed in action before his son was even born. And not the only case of that. You'll hear more. Private Lawrence J. LeBeau. Staff Sergeant Edward Lockwood. Kind of a backstory on him. It says lived on Westport Avenue. Way back, there was a children's home across the street from Stu Leonard's. People remember that? That's where he lived when I found him on a census. Can't find any of his family, although with that last name in Norwalk, I should be able to find somebody related to him. Corporal James M. Logan, airborne. PFC John D. McGrath, Medal of Honor recipient, Eagle Scout, Scout leader, Norwalk Ski Club, McGrath Sports Complex and Pool at Fort Drum, New York is named after him. He's the first Medal of Honor recipient from the 10th Mountain Division. And with that history and that unit, to be the first, it's saying something. He was 20 years old. Family member John McGrath here?
Hi, my name is Charlie Weeks. I'm a U.S. Navy veteran, Vietnam War. John D. was my father's cousin. He was born, ironically, on the 4th of July in 1924. He was 18 when he went into service. He became a member of the 10th Mountain Division. He was killed in action in Italy during intense fighting on April 14, 1945. He was 20 years old. For his heroic actions above and beyond the call of duty PFC, John D. McGrath was posthumously awarded the nation's highest award, the Medal of Honor. He was also awarded the Purple Heart. Just as for the sake of knowing anybody to look for an interesting read, you can see his bio online. It's the stuff that movies are made out of. Thank you.
Private First Class Anthony J. Mattis. Ship's Cook Third Class Burley A. Mears. He was honored at an event at the American Legion this past Sunday where a flag was raised in his honor for the month of August. That long-standing program is available to any deceased veteran who is honorably discharged. The veteran does not have to be a member of any veteran organization. Most of you know how to get in touch with me. If this is something that your family would like to do, we would be happy to honor you. And I'd like to point out that Leo Mutika, Although he's representing the VFW, he's also a life member of the American Legion, and he's one of the people that kept that program alive for 20 years or more. Alan and Kathy Mears, are you here? PFC Robert C. Merritt. Fire Controlman, 3rd Class Thomas Morgan. During World War II, the U.S. Navy submarine service suffered the highest casualty percentage of all the American armed forces, losing 1 in 5 submariners. Some 16,000 submariners served during the war, of whom 375 officers and 3,131 enlisted men were killed in action. He is the only submariner from Norwalk to be killed in action. Is Mark Mislinski here? Corporal Aurelio Mucci. He was the scoutmaster of Troop 6 from 1938 to 1942. He was also the captain of the Calf Pasture Lifeguards. Silver Star Medal recipient, excerpt from his citation. In an attempt to rescue 6 men of his troop caught in an enemy trap, Corporal Mucci calmly faced heavy enemy machine gun and mortar fire in a futile search of the area. Corporal Mucci escaped from this area in enemy encirclement under cover of darkness. One of 3 Norwalkers who were buried in the American cemetery in Tunisia, North Africa. Sergeant Jesse N. Olmsted. You'll recognize a lot of these last names. These are street names in town, old Norwalk family names. Radio Technician, 2nd Class Robert R. Parks. USS Morrison was sunk by a kamikaze attack. Seaman 2nd Class Rocco G. Pesacreta went down on the USS Buck. Staff Sergeant Everett J. Plummer. This is another MIA. We hope to get back, but because the plane went down in China, it's unlikely, but the plane did crash on land and not at sea, so it's possible. Who knows? Someday it might come back to us. PFC Harold D. Rasmussen. PFC Leo J. Room. Ship's Cook, 3rd Class John Rinko. Radio control bomb. Interesting piece of technology for that time frame. Staff Sergeant Joseph C. Romano just recently passed away. Was unable to find family members despite having his obituary and looking social media and other places. 2nd Lieutenant Norman P. Rosenfield. Tech Sergeant Ward M. Sackle. He is on a memorial on a country road in Mantes-le-Gard, how's that for my French? France, in honor of the crew that crashed there, one of whom actually survived and was captured and lived and came home. Private Louis W. Santo. Seaman 1st Class Joseph J. Scavo Sr., who is in the room today with his family.
Is this on? So, this is my father. He's 97 years old. He was wounded at the invasion of Leyte. He was on an LST, which was landing troops and supplies on the island, and they were attacked from the air and artillery from the shore. And his job was, he was a gunner on a .30 caliber machine gun, and he was told to man his battle stations, and then he was wounded in the arm, and he got him down to himself down to sick bay, and then he ended up on a hospital ship. That's it.
Sorry, I'm his granddaughter. I'm going to say a little bit more about the man I know to love. He's 97 now. He was married to his wife for over 60 years. They had 6 kids, 19 grandchildren, and now 6 great-grandchildren. So we're grateful for every single day that we have him. So we love you, Grandpa.
97 years young. Very good. Another handsome movie star, good looks guy right there. Staff Sergeant Joseph J. Sidlak. First Lieutenant Warren E. Semple. There's a monument in Orange, France, listing pilots who died in that area, and some of the plaques from when that monument was dedicated are in the American Legion in the commander's office. Also awarded the Distinguished Flying Cross. Not many of those. I spoke to a second cousin of his, Ellen Kern, who's unable to make it. She wanted me to point out he had 8 air medals, which is far and above anybody else I've researched. Quite a pilot. Second Lieutenant Walter D. Sloat, Jr. The transport ship he was on was sunk by bombs from a plane. Tragic loss of life, over 1,000 people in that one incident in Algeria. Staff Sergeant Robert M. Smith. First Lieutenant Richard H. Sperry. Lieutenant Commander Alfred G. Simons, Jr. And his son lives in Massachusetts. I've been trying to get a hold of him, but unfortunately have not been able to. Staff Sergeant Martin Francis Troy. A little story about him. Thankfully, his remains were recovered, and he was buried by his family in 2008. As far as MIAs go, we know those lost at sea won't be coming home, but we still hold out hope for those that potentially could come back to us and we can honor like the Troy family did. Is a member of the family here? Quartermaster Third Class Walton B. Vale, one of the 2 Coast Guard troops. The Muskeget was a floating weather station and was sunk by a U-boat. Staff Sergeant Robert P. Valentik. Seaman First Class George P. Van Alstyne, also on the Muskeget, and on the East Coast Memorial at Battery Park down in Manhattan. Sergeant Harold C. Van Ness, recipient of Distinguished Service Cross, also unable to find a citation for that. I'm not going to quit, though. Private First Class Edward C. Vingo. Their family member here? Jeff? Right? Kim? Thank you for getting me the picture. I appreciate it.
Thank you. I was told when I spoke to you that I could speak for 5 minutes, so because I don't want to forget anything, I wrote it down. But first of all, I'd like to thank the Military and Veterans Liaison Committee for this honor for my father. He would have been grateful for the recognition, but like millions of veterans from the greatest generation, he seldom talked about his experiences during the war. When he came home, he put it behind him, and after the war, he raised a family and got to work at what he was good at. And for our dad, that meant taking over his parents' storefront grocery that they had started in their living room during the Depression years and growing it into Vingo's Market at a cornerstone in South Norwalk's Taylor Avenue neighborhood. The war was behind him, and all we ever knew of that time was from looking at memorabilia he had brought back that included his Purple Heart, kept in a small drawstring sack in the dresser. That, and of course, the long scar on his left leg where he was wounded. That was about it. He never spoke about it. Many years later, I was taking him to Norwalk Hospital for an appointment, and we struck up a conversation with a gentleman in the waiting room who asked if my dad was in the war. Yes, I was, he said. Well, I bet you have some stories to tell. Well, I didn't do much, he replied, and that was the extent of it. Now, if anyone knew my father, you know that that was him being a conversationalist. Okay, so, but it was a few years later, on the 50th anniversary of the end of World War II, and I was at my parents' house on a Sunday. We were watching TV. There was a program, probably 60 minutes, commemorating the end of the war. And without prompting, my father began to tell me how he got his Purple Heart. and I didn't dare interrupt him for fear that he would go silent on me. And this is briefly what he told me. In February 1944, his unit was part of the 36th Texas Division, and it was part of the slowed Allied effort to dislodge the German army from the hills surrounding Monte Cassino Abbey near Naples, which coincidentally was near the birthplace of his parents, our grandparents. It was there that they dug in, carving shallow foxholes in the rocky ground at the base of the mountain. A German observation post in OP spotted them and directed mortar fire onto my dad's position. Everyone dove for the foxholes, except the one GI got the Private Bingo's foxhole first, leaving him in the open. So all they could do was hit the ground and hope. It was then that an exploding shrapnel round ripped into his leg and neck. He remembered hearing the screams of Indian troops on an adjacent hill as they too came under the same fire. And that is how he earned his Purple Heart. I think it goes without saying that our dad would have appreciated this honor. He loved his country, and by coincidence, today, August 7th, would have been his 106th birthday. So, yeah, this is very special for him. But if he were here, I'm sure he would say, I didn't do much. But in fact, he and his younger brother, who you'll hear about soon, and thousands of others like him did a lot to give us a better world. So on his behalf, thank you.
My beautiful bride, the lovely Kim, said I skipped somebody. Foul. I actually have a story I need to read about him too. How did I go right after? Oh, right by him. I don't know. Anyway, this story was provided to me by a family member. It's a letter that his sister Nettie wrote after he passed. Dear loving brother Frank up in heaven, you were much older than me, but I remember you in your uniform. You were very handsome, and we little ones looked up to you. I also remember on Christmas Eve night how you would look out the window and you would say, Santa's coming, Santa's coming. And we little ones would run to our bedroom and jump into bed. We missed you very much when you went to war, and we missed you ever since, your loving sister, Nettie. There's a family member here, SETI family. No? Yes? Do you want to say a few words, sir? Ma'am? No? Thanks for the letter. Paints a better picture. Apologize for skipping, and thanks for keeping me in line. And I believe we are on the other Vingo brother, Staff Sergeant Lewis Vingo. Here we are. Family member here. Hello again.
Sergeant Louis Vingo was the youngest son of an Italian immigrant family. He graduated from Norwalk High and was employed by Siegel Luck before entering the Army on February 12, 1941. My Uncle Louis was with General Patton's Third Army, which was instrumental in beating back Hitler's last stand in the Battle of the Bulge in Belgium. It was there on December 28, 1944, that he gave his life for his country. He was only 27 years old. He never knew the joy of having a family of his own. His body was not returned to the United States for burial until 1949. I was 3 years old, but I can still remember my grandmother's door draped in black. The Purple Heart is one of many medals he was awarded. My mother never got over the death of her younger brother, talked of him often, and missed him until the day she died. Although I never knew my uncle, I am proud to be his niece and to be named after him. I'd like to thank Jeff and the Military and Veteran Liaison Committee for making tonight possible.
Thank you. Seaman First Class Robert V. Walter. Staff Sergeant Edward L. Wargo. And the last honoree for World War II, Corporal Robert M. Young. Corporal Young is also the recipient of the Legion of Merit Medal. The Legion of Merit Medal is granted to individuals who demonstrate an exceptional level of meritorious conduct. The Legion of Merit is typically presented only to senior command or staff, with occasional exceptions. Corporal Young was a low-ranking enlisted troop. He must have been exceptional. Is Ellen or Julie here? Kim? You don't want to say anything? No? Okay. Thanks for being here. I want to talk about something for a quick second. I was months into the research when a gift was presented to me. Not a gift because I have to give it back, but the family of David Cole, who's a recipient who you'll meet during the Vietnam War segment, the family let me borrow this, and it has a CD in it. I needed the CD because it lists all the Purple Heart recipients, and the print's about this big. So I threw the CD in my computer and found 15 Norwalk residents in here that I wasn't aware of, and some of those you just heard from. And Donna, you can have your book back. Now the Korean War. Private Frank N. Berwa, his brother, who was 4 years older, Lieutenant J.G. Andrew S. Biro, was killed in action during World War II when his plane crashed. Unfortunately, there is no record of him being awarded the Purple Heart Medal, but the Biro brothers definitely served, and can you imagine being the parents, losing two sons in two different wars? Is there a member of the family here? Rob? No? PFC Donald C. Brown. On his lapel it says PMA. It's Peekskill Military Academy in Westchester County, New York. It was open for several years, and that's where he did his high school years. Sergeant Harry O. Faust, Jr. This was the newest addition. It was early this week or late last week. I was able to add him to this program. Gunshot wound to the right thigh. Catherine and Patrick O'Connor. Catherine's here. I know you are. Yep. Hello.
It was difficult for me to track down information. My mother died when I was young, and my father remarried, and my stepmother has a lot of this stuff, but she's just been operated on. So this is a picture of my mother and my father that I found I had at my house, and I did have his papers from when he was released from the Army. He wasn't born in Norwalk, but he lived here, and he raised all three of his children here. And he worked here for years. He lived on Belden Avenue. And maybe you might remember him. He's one of the handsome butchers at Atlantic Meat Market. And he would be very proud to be honored today. And thank you so much for helping me with this.
Sergeant Edward T. Gutkowski, Jr. I want to credit the commander of the Marine Corps League in Norwalk, Dan Caparel, for pointing me in the direction of the family here and being able to include him. He was a regular at the Veterans Day events at City Hall and that sort of thing. Daughter and son-in-law Stephen and Sandy Bodner live in Newtown, but were unable to get out of their driveway. Ensign George A. Martin. He is one of two MIA from the Korean War. Lost at sea. They attempted recovery. He was not found. Plus, it was February off of North Korea. First Lieutenant John B. McGinnis. This is the other MIA from the Korean War. His plane went down in North Korea. He's one that we also hope to see come home soon. His family here? No? Yes? Would you like to say some things? No? I was given this picture days ago, 3 or 4 days ago. I had a really grainy one from the Norwalk Hour. Now that's a fantastic shot right there. And I've also sent that up to, I put it on his webpage and sent it to the National Purple Heart Medal Museum as well. Corporal Julius Caesar Nassie. Yes, that's his middle name, C. I found a testimonial about Corporal Nassie, about him being a great Marine, and everybody loved to be stationed with him and serve with him. PFC Joseph A. Rizzi. And Dan, he lived on the street you live on. How about that? And that's kind of why I put addresses on there. It creates a connection for people, especially kids. My goal is to roll this out to the schools, or the website at least, to have them include some of this in the curriculum, especially around Memorial Day. It's important that we have this out there. Now on to the Vietnam names. PFC Charles W. Bachman, Bronze Star Medal recipient with Valor also. Captain Joseph O. Brown, he was an O-1F pilot. It's a single-seater. The only weapon he had on him was a revolver. Forward air controller, so the Air Force would send these planes out ahead of Army units, and he would come back and report positions and armament and that sort of thing. Bird dogs, that's exactly right. The story I heard from a member of his family is that a piece of the wing of his plane ended up in a school in Laos and was used as a blackboard. And I've kind of a deep connection to him. Air Force guy. I was also a pilot and a hero because he flew that with little cover. His family member here, Jay, cornerback, Kim, my lovely bride, over here.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It is truly an honor to have my great uncle in the company of such brave and noble young men. My name is J.T. Gunzy. I'm the grandnephew of Joseph Orville Brown. He was born on September 9th, 1934 in Norwalk, Connecticut. Joseph was an athletic young man who played golf for Norwalk High and softball during his summers. He graduated from Norwalk High School in 1952 at the age of 17, not much older than I am now. From there, Joseph enlisted into the Air Force as he very much wanted to fly. While stationed in California, he met his future wife, Marilyn Gould. They had 2 daughters named Karen and Laura, who presently live in California and are unfortunately unable to attend this evening. He began OCS and worked his way up the ranks toward his dream of becoming an aviator. His experience as a bombardier, navigator, and finally flight training afforded him the opportunities to fly cargo jets, strategic air command missions on the B-52, and finally forward flight control reconnaissance. He loved to fly. After 15 years of service, he went missing in action on April 19, 1966 in Laos, Vietnam. 32 years later, in 1998, we received closure when the investigation of his crash site was concluded. In the spring of 1999, we celebrated his life and noble service to our country at a full military memorial service in Arlington, Virginia, with the surviving members of his family. Posthumously, he was promoted to Colonel Joseph Brown, Detachment 3, 505th Tactical Control Group, United States Air Force. His love of flying continues to be lived out through his nephew, my dad, Jay Gunzy, who is a pilot for United Airlines. Colonel Brown's younger sister, my grandmother, Margaret Gunzy, is in attendance this evening. Thank you for this honor, and congratulations to the city of Norwalk for being named a Purple Heart City. Thank you all for listening to me tonight, and thank you for sharing the stories of these gallant young men. May God bless America and all the men and women who have served and continue to serve for our country and freedom.
Well done. I don't think I had that kind of poise when I was your age. Excellent. Now look at me. I don't know. Still don't have poise. Anyway. Lieutenant Colonel, he retired as a lieutenant colonel, was wounded when he was a lieutenant. David P. Cole, wife Donna, you have a few words.
Hi, everybody. My husband would have loved to have been here, but we don't have power, so I did want to call the fire department to have them come and move his elevator up and down twice. One to get here and one to get home. Anyways, my husband, like most of everybody that has received a Purple Heart, do not like to talk about how they got wounded. And so my husband, when he went to school, was asked to go to schools, and his favorite school was West Rocks, and he would give a history lesson about the origination of the Purple Heart. And after he gave his normal speech about the fact that the Purple Heart was done by George Washington, and the first 3 recipients of the actual Purple Heart were done on purple cloth with the seamstress had sewn a gold heart on. And the first 3 recipients and the only recipients were from Connecticut. And so anyways, after his speech, one little girl, I think she probably was in grade 6 or 7, and she goes, "Mr. Cole, how did you feel when you got wounded?" And my husband goes, "Well, it wasn't an LOL moment, but it definitely was an OMG moment." And then later, with the principal of the school, she goes, "Boy, you did really good. You really, the kids really understood what you said. But what would you have said if you had been in high school?" And that was, well, probably would have been the WTF. And, but he loved teaching people about the Purple Heart when he was there. And he jokes around that on his orders, that at the bottom of the orders that he got when he got wounded was the name of Captain Colin Powell. So they got dinged the same year. But anyways, God bless everybody, and take care of yourselves.
Thanks, Donna. Specialist Willie C. Davis, unfortunately, was killed in action due to friendly fire. Specialist Michael Diorio, another movie star, good looks. Family member here, all the way in the back, Kim? No words? Thank you for being here. PFC James T. Fabrizio, another airborne, graduated from Brian McMahon. George H. Haley III. This is one that was in the big book here. It has an address. I sent 2 letters. They didn't come back, and I haven't heard from him. But as far as I know, he's still living. PFC Richard A. Caskey. Just this morning, I had a Facebook chat with his daughter, Danielle. Danielle lives in Vermont and is taking care of her mom. She said, "The only memories I have of him are others' memories. He was killed while my mom was pregnant. My firstborn son is Richard, and have called him Rit." Rit was PFC Caskey's nickname also, since before his birth. And now he and his wife are expecting again, and know for sure it's a boy, and are naming the little guy Richard Allen. I just remembered the funniest story ever that his mom, my grandmother Mary, told me. All the trees that encircle Norwalk High School, the perimeter mostly, were planted by my father as a detention for being a cut-up in class. He was pretty social, but he was never a bad boy, but did goofy things to get himself in trouble now and again. Sounds familiar. That is my favorite story because my grandmother shared it with me, and for whatever reason, it's the one that I carry closest to my heart. I wish she could have been here. Very sweet woman. Corporal William J. Lilly. Family here?
My name's Paul Lilly. I'm Bill's nephew, and sadly, it's me and my older brother that have memories of him. I've tried to tell my brothers and sisters about him, And even if it's just stories of him chasing me around the grandparents' house and tickling us, he was a really warm and loving guy. He had a wicked sense of humor, and my favorite story about him is my aunt just told me when in his teenage years he took the family Great Dane Thor, who was waist high at the shoulder, down to the end of their driveway and tried to sell pony rides to the neighborhood kids. So that gives you a little clue on what kind of guy he was. The other thing I want to reiterate is that he was in college and he didn't have to go. He was engaged and he was going to get married. He didn't have to go. He was 6'8", and the Armed Forces doesn't take people that tall. But he got a medical waiver and he went because he felt it was so important to serve his country. And I just wanted to say that. And we have our nephew, my brother's son here, and we're just trying to keep his memory alive. And I want to thank you very much for you doing that as well. Thank you very much.
I saw a testimonial to Bill Lilly online somewhere, and it goes something like, I'm going to miss the big grin on that big, goofy redhead, something like that, and big ears. Yeah. Lance Corporal Edward McSorley. He is also in that Purple Heart directory, and I was unable to locate him. Along with the next name, PFC Philip L. Mikic, who has a website with pictures from Vietnam that he took, but there's no contact us link, nothing. Unable to speak to him. I did grab a picture off of there just so you can connect face with the name. Lance Corporal Pietro Asamanti. I spoke to a family member who said he's unable to attend. He did provide me this picture, though, via email 6 months ago, probably. Lives up in West Reading. Corporal Edward V. Palmenta. Staff Sergeant Michael B. Paquin. Testimonials to him, professional soldier, that sort of thing. First Lieutenant Albert M. Prevost. Family members here?
Hello, everybody. I'm not from these parts. You'll be able to tell. Dad lived here starting around 1940. I believe he stayed here till he entered the military service. I have the people of Norwalk to thank because Dad came over from France at 5 years old and was raised by guardian parents, Isabel and Ray Rourke, here in Norwalk. Other family members were McCabe's and Kellogg's. Y'all may know that name. Anyway, so thank you for teaching him English to start with, being French, and also somebody taught him how to sail, and he loved to sail lightning class, competed in that. I'm glad to be here. Thank you, Jeff, Mayor, dignitaries, and all of the heroes that are here. The pivot of life that you go through, and either MIA, killed in action, injured, is just tremendous to everybody. So we're all heroes in that way. Thank you.
Sir, your family's been very generous with pictures and stories. I really appreciate it. I'm going to talk about the website that I built and just completed towards the end. He's got a page out there with all those pictures out there. So, Lance Corporal Charles E. Richards. Corporal David C. Sanborn. I spoke with him on the phone. He's in New Hampshire. He's very humble about his experience. He did share with me that he was wounded 3 times, all within a month. And he made me promise to focus on the younger vets. He says, guys like him, don't worry about him. Very humble. Nice man. Corporal Michael J. Scanlon. I spoke with a surviving stepbrother who was unable to make the trip. Little backstory, kind of the opposite of Bill Lilly. Corporal Scanlon was 5'2", and the drill instructors at boot camp didn't think he was tall enough to be a Marine. But he went on to win a field day competition. Dan, you could probably, Dan Caparel behind you, probably tell a little bit about it, what a field day competition is. When all the recruits come together, compete running, swimming, pull-ups, push-ups, that sort of thing, and he ended up winning it at 5'2". And they didn't find him a uniform that fit him until he was just about ready to graduate. It's one of the things you find out about people when you dig in. PFC Daniel J. Shea, the other Medal of Honor recipient, little extract from his citation for the Medal of Honor, with complete disregard for his safety. And when it starts like that, you know it must have been bad. And braving the intense hostile fire sweeping the open rice paddy, PFC Shea made 4 trips to tend wounded soldiers and to carry them to the safety of the platoon position. Seeing a 5th wounded comrade directly in front of one of the enemy strong points, PFC Shea ran to his assistance, and as he reached the wounded man, PFC Shea was grievously wounded. Specialist Robert F. Stevens, many infantry on this list. Staff Sergeant William J. Tarsi, he knew service. He served not only in the Navy, but the Norwalk Police Department as well for 2 years. Major Larry A. Thorne, a little bit of an enigma. He was born in Finland, served in the Army there. Then he joined the German Army. Then he was a stowaway on a ship that reached port in Alabama, and he escaped that. Then he joined the United States Army. Then he became a citizen, and along the way, he listed his hometown as Norwalk, Connecticut. Through all the research, I never found a connection to anyone in Norwalk of his. But he's on the Vietnam Wall. There's a website for all the names on the Vietnam Memorial Wall, and it says it right out there, hometown, Norwalk, Connecticut. How about that? PFC Alexander G. Wynio. I did speak to a family member, or a family friend rather, said he was just a baby and wanted to be like his father who served at the Chosin Reservoir in Korea. He joined 3 weeks after he turned 17. Moving on to Operation Iraqi Freedom, and a face that you should know well around town. The family has been very active in veteran causes here and run the Wilfredo Perez Jr. Foundation. He was guarding a hospital in Bukuba, Iraq. Sir, would you like to say anything? Wilfredo Sr.
Thank you. Junior was my son, or is my son. It's a little difficult to talk about him. Sometimes it feels like yesterday. I like to stay strong in front of my other 2 sons that are present here today. Jeff, I'd like to thank you personally. Norwalk and the American Legion are very lucky to have you. You have worked very hard on this, and just thank you so much, Jeff. All right? Thank you.
And we have one from Operation Enduring Freedom, Private First Class David R. Fahey Jr. Carrie, would you like to say anything? Carrie Ettinger and Mike Standiner are advocates of veteran programs in Norwalk. They frequently come to the American Legion for our flag ceremony on the first Sunday of every month, and I want to thank you for that.
Thank you for that. I don't have anything prepared like everyone else. I didn't plan on speaking, so bear with me. David had many trials in his life, and he never let that taint him. He went through things that no child should ever have to go through. But he always rose above it. He had a great sense of humor and a great sense of family. He loved fast cars and football, and he signed up enlisted right out of high school. He left 4 days before my birthday. He was military police, and he went wanted this to set him up for his future as a police officer. State police is what he wanted. And just wanted to have a normal life. He wanted to come home, meet somebody, and start a family. And unfortunately, it wasn't meant to be. But we're going to keep him alive in everyone's memories as long as we can. Thank you for everything.
This concludes the portion of the event where we honor the medal recipients. Here's some next steps, and I love that my mayor is sitting right in front of me. I would love to see a permanent Purple Heart Medal monument in town. Those are 4 examples from around the country. I've reached out to 3 of the 4 to find out which vendors they used, and hope to begin collecting quotes to see what it will take to put one of these somewhere, Betts Park or down at Calf Pasture. The city needs to honor our combat wounded, and I think this is a way to do it. We can do some fundraising, you know, make a brick walkway and sell the bricks, that sort of thing. So if you want to know what I'm up to over the next year or so, is to make sure that that happens. Will Mayor Rilling and Dan Ettinger join me up here, please? I have a proclamation to read. Purple Heart Day, August 7th, 2020. Whereas the residents of Norwalk have great admiration and the utmost gratitude for all men and women who have selflessly served their country and this community in the armed forces. And whereas veterans have paid the high price of freedom by leaving their families and communities and placing themselves in harm's way for the good of all. And whereas the Purple Heart Medal was the first American Service Award or decoration made available to the common soldier and is specifically awarded to members of the United States Armed Forces who have been wounded, held prisoner of war, or made the ultimate sacrifice in combat with a declared enemy of the United States of America. And whereas the mission of the Military Order of the Purple Heart is to foster an environment of goodwill among the combat wounded veteran members and their families, promote patriotism, support legislative initiatives, and most importantly, make sure we never forget. Now, therefore, I, Harry W. Rilling, Mayor of the City of Norwalk, hereby proclaim Friday, August 7, 2020 as Purple Heart Day in Norwalk, and in doing so, encourage the citizens of Norwalk to show their appreciation for the sacrifices the Purple Heart recipients have made in defending our freedoms, to acknowledge their courage, and to show them the honor and the support that they have earned. In witness whereof, I have hereunto set my hand and caused the seal of the City of Norwalk to be affixed this 7th day of August 20th. Harry W. Rilling, Mayor, City of Norwalk. Somewhere in City Hall. We can do that. Somewhere in City Hall. Yes. Okay. But wait, there's more. Dan, I believe you have something for the mayor. While I go collect that, Mayor Rilling, do you have a few words for us?
Thank you. First of all, I'd like to apologize for being late and the way I'm dressed. My wife and I have been living out of a suitcase at a hotel for the past couple of days as we're running around the city trying to get the power back on and working with Eversource, or as my wife likes to call them, Neversource. But the first thing I'd like to do is talk a little bit about Jeff. Just a moment. Was it 2 years ago now? At the Veterans Day ceremony, Jeff was the keynote speaker. And in his closing remarks, he said, you know, I'm a little surprised that a city the size of Norwalk doesn't have a Veterans Liaison Committee. Well, he came back, and he happened to be sitting next to me. Before his derriere hit the chair, I said to him, you are now the Veterans Liaison Chairperson. And I said, you know, you're a military man. The last thing you ever do is volunteer anything, you know, but he did. And I want to say thank you, Jeff, and I think a nice round of applause for what he has done. He has done an amazing job. And I can tell you that we will 100% stand behind the Purple Heart Monument at Veterans Park. And if Jeff approaches me nicely, I think we can probably make the first down payment on it from the City of Norwalk coffers. But it's an honor for me and my wife both to be here today. This is an amazing, amazing event. Thank you, Pastor Kasimis and Janice, for inviting us into your church. And I love to hear the stories. Norwalk is a wonderful, wonderful city. We honor our military men and women. We honor our Medal of Honor winners. We honor our Purple Heart recipients, all those who gave so much, leaving their families. And it was interesting because I heard the story about Richard Caskey. 100% true. He was a terror in high school. I remember him very well. I remember him getting in fights and underneath the trees that he helped plant. But, you know, and he gave his life serving our country in Vietnam. And I know I heard the day that the military adjutant went to the factory store over on East Avenue and had to tell his wife that Richard had passed in the line of duty. Mr. Vingo, Louis Vingo, he came out of the military and he worked at Siegel Lock. When I came, before I went in the military, I worked at New England Lock and Hardware. And that was Siegel Lock at that particular, by the time I got there. And John Hines, who was the owner of New England Lock and Hardware, probably knew Louis Vingo very well. I don't know if they ever had any conversations, but I knew John really well as the best boss that I ever worked for. And only after he passed did I realize that he had stormed the beach at Normandy because he did not want to talk about it. I played cards with him. I bowled on the same bowling team as him. But that's just what our military men and women are like. They serve with honor, they serve with distinction, and they don't look for anything in return other than to come home and have a good life. And so this is such an amazing, amazing event, and I want to thank you all for being there. Thank you all who shared the stories of your loved ones, and thank you for their service, and God bless this amazing, amazing nation that we so proudly call the United States of America. Thank you.
Hooah! Right? Hooah! Hey, I really appreciate this. When I first became the commander of the military of Purple Heart in Connecticut, I looked across the state. I found there were 4 cities that were Purple Heart cities. And Connecticut was the first Purple Heart organization in the United States. So the question was, what is wrong with this picture? So that's when I started this whole program in the state to make more cities Purple Heart cities. And over the last year, we've now hit, I think, 19 Purple Heart recipients presentations, including the hockey team down in Bridgeport. So there's a lot of activity going on. If you know of a group that would like to be identified as a Purple Heart group, get a hold of Jeff. If you know of family members that have a Purple Heart in their family, get a hold of Jeff. When I first went into Vietnam, I was a young 19-year-old kid, Spec 4, running a specialty group, and they gave me a map. It said, top secret map of Vietnam. When I opened it up, it was a piece of indoor-outdoor carpeting. And that's about what we've done with our Purple Heart recipients. We've put them in someplace and we've kept them top secret. It's time to bring them out in the front. Bring them to the front so people can see and understand the sacrifice that it means. What does it mean to be a Purple Heart city? There's no financial gain. There's no great honor other than what you can present from your heart. It is an outward expression of an inward desire to recognize those people who have sacrificed for our country. So with that, we have the Military Order of the Purple Heart Special Recognition Award bestowed with pride to the city of Norwalk, Connecticut, for your dedication and support honoring American combat wounded veterans Become a Purple Heart City, presented by the Patriot members of the Military Order of the Purple Heart.
This is absolutely gorgeous, and this will be a permanent fixture in the lobby at City Hall and a place of honor where it should be. Thank you.
I have a few thanks, everybody in the room, especially my wife Kim, who yeah, probably just embarrassed her, but that's all right. I've spent a lot of time on this research, and she has sacrificed some time, some weekends. I was off in cemeteries in Massachusetts to try to find these guys, and thanks. Appreciate it. Thank you to Rich Olson and Leo Matika. Happy birthday again, Leo. Dan Caparel. This wouldn't have been right without the leaders of the veteran service organizations in town to be present. Reverend Cardamone, would you like to come up and say a few words, sir, in closing? I'm sorry, go ahead. Sure. Yep. Here comes the microphone. Gotta make sure you end up on the video.
Hi, I'm Joe Abruscato. I'm the nephew of Michael Abruscato, who was recognized first this evening from World War II. Just two things. I want to thank you. I dealt with you many times, emails, for the tremendous job you did on this. I don't know how you did it on your own. And I just want to thank you and recognize the achievements that you did there. It was a hell of an undertaking, and I want to thank you. Thank you very much. Second, I would like to recognize my Uncle Mike's baby sister, who's my Aunt Dorothy, who is 99 years young, and she's in great shape for her age. Well, my Aunt Dorothy. Thank you for the time. Thank you.
Well done, Joe. Well done. Reverend? Typically, events like this start with a prayer, end with a prayer. And since we have another reverend in the house, why not?
I spoke with Jeff by email a few weeks ago. If I may just say it, I feel like I lived what I've worked on for 26 years behind the scenes, and not anything near the effort that Jeff has given to it. But I just finished a book. It's called War Stories and Remembrance, and its three goals were to remember the history, to honor the sacrifice, and to prevent future wars. And it started because I grew up on Byington, and Mayor really grew up on Berkeley, and my grandmother and aunt lived on Elm. And my four uncles were in World War II, and painting my grandmother's living room, June 6th, 1994. And I said, Grandma, tell me some of the stories as we were watching the D-Day commemoration. And in Georgetown, when I pastored, the VFW gave me an award. We did a Saturday breakfast. And I still have tapes sitting in boxes, but we put together what we had, and Jeff's project just sounds tremendous. And it's a calling, it's a labor of love. My mother raised me to be a patriot. She was born on Lexington Avenue. I'll just share one other thing. grandmother was B. Sienna, and my grandfather was Phil Marino, was a barber on Woodward Avenue. So you're looking at all these old names. And when my mom passed 13 years ago, she had saved this little program. The picture of it's going to be in my book. Columbus Day Memorial Fund, 1945. And it had all the Italian Americans down here. Your uncle is one of the first ones listed there. And their picture, where they were killed in action. And I just said, I wish I could get in touch with these families. I was able to reach one family, the Tremonti family, who were from Saugatuck. My Uncle Frank and Anastasia, the Saugatuck boys, I think 5 of them were all in the war. And I just said, let me find an old phone book. I called the Tremontis. They lived in town here. Got a hold of Joe, the nephew. And that's the one picture I was able to use because you know the amount of work it is. And it is unbelievable to see these families here. Auntie, God bless you, 99. And the thing is, all that our country's going through, that God has allowed, these past several years, these past several months, this blackout this week was like one more thing that God just wants to empty us and remind us of the things that matter most. On that plaque, half past your beach, it says, no greater love than a man lays down his life for his friend. Pastor already started off. What a friend we have in Jesus. Let's look to the Lord. Father, as Pastor already started off reminding us of the love you had in giving your son, by his stripes we've been healed. And for Jeff and this labor of love, I know a little bit about the effort that it takes. For these who have served, we honor their sacrifices and their wounds. Some of them are physical, many are psychological, many even have come back in despair. We've lost them right here on the home front in recent years. Father, we ask that your Holy Spirit would pour out your love for the simple things that Jesus taught us, to love you with all of our heart and to love our neighbor as ourselves. And that includes our veterans. For all these sacrifices, we extend our thanks and gratitude, and forever our debt for the wonderful liberty that they have secured for us. Whatever sacrifices we may face ahead, remind us always, be grateful. Thank you for your grace, mercy, and peace. Praise in Christ's name.
So I made reference to website, norwalkctheroes.org. Finished the last piece of it. I reached out to, it's not just veterans, I reached out to the police department and the fire department too. There was, believe it or not, Norwalk fire departments had only 1 loss in the line of duty, and police department 4, and there are bios to them out there. If you go to that link, norwalkctheroes.org, there's a link to Purple Heart recipients. They get their own page. All 117. It's been an honor and a privilege, and I'd like to close with the playing of taps. If you all could rise, and let's remember the ones that didn't come back. That concludes the program. Please be safe. Have a great weekend. Thank you for being here.